Yep, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. It is a pleasure to have as my guest today Charity McDonald. And I will just read you her bio quickly because this woman is amazing.
Thank you so much.
This woman is amazing. So here we go. Charity McDonald is a learning and development strategist, leadership consultant, keynote speaker, and the founder of Crown Institute, pronounced CROWN. So when you notice on LinkedIn, there's a little emoji beside her name. That's what it stands for, Crown. Charity is a former executive recruiter and career coach. She uses her experiences to guide organizations and executives to with her Crown model of self-leadership framework. In 2024, Charity was recognized as an award-winning Power 50 content creator and top leadership voice on LinkedIn. She has helped thousands of professionals decide to ditch stress cycles and define success on their terms. Charity's professional experience includes higher education management, recruiting, and ed tech. In addition, she was a former lead facilitator for the U.S. Department of State. Charity is a sought after trainer and speaker for colleges and corporations to discuss wellness and leadership development. Most recently, she has expanded her business offerings to include executive branding and learning strategy. Charity has been recognized as an expert in career transition and interviewed by the LA Times and Forbes Africa to discuss the impact of AI on career strategy and mental wellness in professional development. To learn more about Charity, connect with her on LinkedIn. So, Charity, welcome to today's um, episode of not only LinkedIn Live, but of course the Aspire to Grow podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much. And I love how eloquently, Enrico, you read that. It sounded way better than, just how it's listed. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, good. And we're getting a hello from Christy Williams in Florida. So that's
Christy.
great. Welcome, Christy. So here's my first question for you, Charity, and I think that's how we actually got connected because I listened to a podcast that you were a guest on, and you spoke about self leadership,
Yes.
and until then I hadn't given that much thought about self leadership. So, can you just explain to our audience what does self leadership mean?
Yes. That is an amazing question. And self leadership is something I actually learned about from the woman that was interviewing me. So, yeah, it was a new concept for myself a couple of years ago. It basically refers to your ability to lead yourself. So, it is the ability to control, influence, inspire the outcomes that you would like to achieve, whether that is in your professional or personal endeavors. That's essentially what it is.
Hmm. That's great. And you know what? When I was reposting the link for this episode, I actually thought of this situation when you're on a plane and they say to you, put on your mask before you help others. And I was kind of looking at self leadership from that perspective, that if you can't lead yourself, then you're not going to be able to lead others. So I kind of, you know, use that as saw it as an analogy of the putting on your plane mask. So great, thank you. Now, you have developed a unique framework called Crown. Can you walk us through what it stands for and how it empowers individuals to lead themselves through uncertain times? And we are going through uncertain times right now. So now is a good time for you to explain to us,
Mhm.
what does the framework Crown really mean?
Yes, I love that. And, the name of my business has an acronym as well, but the Crown framework that you're referring to is a series of 5 paths towards you developing and strengthening your self leadership. So each letter, it represents one of those paths. So
Mhm,
C, will start off with conviction, and R would represent recognition, O represents opportunity, and W represents worth, N represents network. So each of those paths have three submodalities to them, each of them. So altogether, it's like 15 submodalities. But the purpose of it is that from those five core paths, you're able to go through a cyclical process of asking yourself, okay, where can I have conviction? Conviction really just refers to the ability to be strong about your intentionality. And it is speaking to, having clarity, having courage, and
mhm,
connecting the dots between where you are and where you would like to be. And recognition is more about recognizing the areas where you're strong as well as the areas where you can improve, right? And kind of figuring out how can you leverage your strengths to fill in those particular gaps. And then also with opportunity, really, I do believe a lot of times when we have challenges and obstacles, they are the path to us actually having opportunity. So it's kind of speaks to, obstacles, the option of if you're going to view it as an obstacle or is this an opportunity for me to learn and grow. And then the other element was just, doing an overview of what these obstacles are and how frequent they come up. And then when we're moving into worth, which is the W element, it's just more about knowing, obviously, like what you're worth, right? And I don't believe any job can actually give us our worth. I believe worth is inherent, and there's no price that can be paid for who you are, right? And all of the value that you bring in your humanity. The only
mhm,
thing that can be probably paid is like the skills that you have. How can that be leveraged? So if we're looking at it from a professional perspective, it would be, okay, the skills, what worth do my skills have in today's current market? I would say to someone that is a professional. And maybe from a personal point of view, it would be, personal core values and how that resonates with where you are and where you want to be. And that focus would be just navigating, okay, what is, I'm going to cast a net, right? So
yes,
if I'm referring to network, so getting into network is, are you casting a net? Are you casting it wide or deep? And it really just depends on the needs that you have at the time. So it would make a difference, right? If we're saying personal or professionally, but
mhm,
network really impacts both. So it's about navigation. It's about understanding that network is net worth as well. And who
yes,
do you know who's a decision maker that can put you in a position to go to the next, level in your career or your personal endeavors. If you have personal goals, people really are the key to that. So whether that is for a new position or to be promoted in a organization you're already part of, it does involve having people and being strong with network. So that's kind of just like, me quickly doing an overview for
yes. Well, great. I'm glad you started with the C in conviction, because it's a matter of believing
yes.
in oneself. And when you mentioned the W, I thought initially you said work, but then I realized it's worth.
Worth,
And I mean,
yes.
oh, there are so many things wrapped up in worth, in terms of, how we value ourselves, and how others value us, and why it's so important for us to pay attention more towards what our values are to remind ourselves that we are worthy, because we don't hear that all the time.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you so much. Now, here's another question I have for you. And these days, I have been having conversations with clients and with other people. And it's as if everything revolves around uncertainty. It's uncertainty about, the next job that I'm gonna get because I'm laid off.
Right.
It's uncertainties about, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen with all that's happening? How do I cope? Now, let me ask you this question. In moments of uncertainty, whether personal or professional,
Mhm.
what's the first thing someone should do to recenter and reclaim their sense of power? Because I think right now some of us feel as if our power is, is leaving us or somebody else has taken it over. So what are some of the what are some of the things we should be doing to kind of reclaim the power?
Yeah, that is a powerful question in itself. And I definitely understand uncertainty has definitely like been a recurring theme really throughout this year and maybe past years, but especially this year there's been a lot of changes in the workforce and just in general for the quality of life. It has changed, with cost and advances in technology and globalization and all these other factors, there is definitely one to understand that one of the things that is certain is uncertainty. So if you reframe your thinking around uncertainty as being something that's like, it's ruining, everything that or that things are happening to you, know that it's happening for you as well.
Yes.
So it's for you to change, to galvanize change. The other thing is a lot of times we view our power as being like solely external and not really understanding our full locus of control as individuals. So a lot of times because we're so heavily caught up on the title and not to say that's not important, but title, prestige, or other factors, people who know us for doing certain things, certain accomplishments and things like that, those are all external things that are great to have, but what if you don't have them? Then what? Right? So I think it's so important to always know that your power is first within. It's not outside of you. It's in you, right?
Mhm.
So the things that make you who you are, they're within, and you're able to use what's within you to be powerful externally. That's what's allowing you to be able to do the great work that you're doing, right? And being able to accomplish the things you accomplish. So it can't be taken away from you, even
Mhm.
in being laid off. The majority of people I've helped are people in career transition and just in general life transition who are looking to, come from a place of really they're not sure what's going on to learning to be more resilient and be prepared for not just career readiness, but also what's next for them in life overall. Because a lot of times we think of things as just like very one dimensional, where if you just think of career, that really it does connect to so many aspects of our lives and it impacts
Mhm.
our lives in so many ways. And it is external. But if we're able to ask ourselves the question in from an internal perspective, okay, so where do I hold conviction? Right. And the other thing is a lot of times people are like, how do I get a return on my investment and things of that nature? I always reframe it. So if I'm dealing with a client on the private end, it's not, okay, what's the return on my investment? What is the return on your intention? So
Yes.
that's what you have to keep in mind.
Sorry. Mhm.
No worries. Your intention when you come into a new situation or a new dynamic or something you didn't expect. And even though, yes, it is uncertain, understanding that uncertainty is part of basically our lives at this point, you don't have that big of a shock or, oh my gosh, like these things are being taken away. You know that the space that you're in is literally not for you to settle for less or feel that, you're less because you no longer have this opportunity or you were
Mhm.
laid off. You will reframe it as being this is a lesson to be learned and I will come through this and my success is inevitable. And right now, the stage that I'm in is the stage that I'm in to teach me a lesson of growth and to learn and to help other people through this lesson I've learned.
Absolutely. And I like how you said at the beginning that uncertainty is certain. And it reminds me of change. Like,
Yes.
yes, it's like change is constant. So, dealing with uncertainties, we have to do that every day. And sometimes it's unpleasant because you think in terms of so many people who are being laid off right now. And
Yes.
it's easy for, in such individuals to start saying, what's the matter with me? What did I do wrong? Why was I the one to be laid off? While it may be hurting right now, but then it's also an opportunity to think of, okay, where do I go next? I have all these skills and experiences. Where can I take them? As opposed to say, oh my goodness, it is over. I'm too old. Those kind of things. So great. My next question for you, Charity, is and you may have mentioned it earlier, but what does leading yourself actually look like in real life?
Yes.
Or can you share an example of where you had to apply your own framework during a challenging moment?
Yes, the thing about the framework is that it was something I was already doing before I even know what self-leadership is and before there was even a framework or any thought of that. So I was already kind of doing it. I would say in the earlier stages of my leadership experience.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a few examples I can use, but yeah, I would say that there was a time I was working on a project. It was like an international program that I was part of. I was working in higher education at the time, and I was helping to manage a program. It's like an international leadership program. I came up with an idea that one of my bosses wasn't too thrilled about, and I would have, I think, initially kind of stopped right there from just the
Mm-hmm.
initial ask because I saw the energy was so low, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to push any further. But something said, no, get like another opinion. So what I did is I polled the opinion of all of the people that would be actually participating to gauge the interest, and was overwhelmingly in favor of what I actually wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that shifted things. I was able to leverage the fact that all of the people who were in the program, it was a fellowship program, most of the people wanted to be involved in my idea, but we hadn't gotten to where it was green. There was a green light, and we had things in place, but not everything was in place. So
Mm-hmm.
what happened is narrowly, I was able to get my idea approved. And the problem with the approval is now, it was now my responsibility to ensure that particular program was successful.
Mm-hmm.
I would not receive any additional support for that. There was no budget for it. It was like, wait, what? So I had to actually out of pocket figure out how to do transport because some of the people in the fellowship were limited in ability. So I actually
Mm-hmm.
had to navigate getting transport for them, and personally basically figure that out. Thankfully, everything kind of came together. But it was me holding conviction that I knew this was something that could benefit those fellows, right? And that it would enrich the experience because we hadn't done anything. It was a cultural activity and it was very specific,
Mm-hmm.
not to get too detailed, but it was really important. It was very impactful. And there were great takeaways from the event. And I'm so grateful I did not just take the first, like, no, we're not interested, or we don't have the budget and all that. I didn't take that as an excuse to kind of just give up. And I recognized my strength was
Mm-hmm.
in leveraging the interest of the those who would be impacted, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were all for it, right? So that helped me tremendously. There was an opportunity through the obstacles that I was able to overcome those obstacles of figuring out transport, knowing there was not a budget, right? Even though at the last minute they decided they would actually compensate me, but they wouldn't give any resources. So
Mm-hmm.
it was still on me to get, the transit, the food and things of that nature, so that to make sure they had something to eat and all of that. So it was a lot because it's not, this isn't like, a couple of people. This was a large group of people that I have to transport,
Okay.
and yeah, and just knowing knowing that it was worth it. It was worth taking the money out of my pocket to get them to
Mm-hmm.
there, if that's what it took for them to have the experience. Because I cared that much about it. It wasn't about,
Right.
bottom line. And yeah, the network aspect helped me to resolve some of those obstacles I had to get the transport. I was able to connect with someone, who actually had a unique transportation that would accommodate the needs of those that had limited ability. So it was really just a God moment for me. And it
Oh,
showed
good.
me I'm a
Good
leader
for you.
regardless of what, the pushback I received from a boss of mine. So
And it also shows what can happen when when you don't take no for an answer. You were convicted, you were convinced that you this was a program, this was something that had to happen. There were people who needed it, and then you led yourself regardless of what was happening. And I mean, sometimes we have to defy the boss, right? Sometimes we have to defy the boss, but it's a good thing that you did have, support. And like I said, you believed in it, and you followed up, and you believed in, possibilities. And that's how I like that. Yeah. Now, we talk a lot about these days, in our coaching conversations, we talk about um mindset, and the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, and all of that. But how does your crown framework help individuals to shift their mindset and maintain emotional resilience?
yes, and I appreciate that question because I always promote growth mindset, and I do think it is so important and imperative. All the models we already have in place, but I do feel like with the Crown framework, the main difference is this is the thing about life and even leadership. Even though we may have been taught that those are like, we think of them as being linear, like this is the
Hmm.
destination and that's it, but it's really cyclical. So the Crown framework is cyclical. It repeats itself. It's not something that you just do one and done, or it's just a straight line.
Right.
Practice does not operate that way, as we see, right? It's cyclical. So the main thing that I hope to get across with the Crown framework is that it's ongoing, and we're always working, we're a work in progress. We're always hopefully lifelong learners, those of us who are coaches is in the helping professions, right? It's so imperative that we understand, and understand, to answer your question,
Hmm.
that the mindset is we have to lead ourselves. And you said it earlier, actually, and that's the core of why I'm so gung ho about self leadership. We have to be able to lead ourselves effectively before we can lead others. So the mindset we should have should always be a growth mindset, but also be cyclical, of knowing
Hmm.
that, okay, there's checks and balances. There are times where everybody does everything they're supposed to do in that linear process, and it's still not enough for
Yes.
today's marketplace, right? So with having the cyclical model, we're not limiting ourselves to just, okay, this is the destination. Oh, you got a job, that's a destination. Okay, but once you get in that job, there can always be, unfortunately, because of the way that times are, there can always be that challenge. So what is it that I can do, right, to support someone in their career development lifelong? Like, are they going to have skills that will help them if they're in, God forbid, in that situation again, that they're
Hmm.
able to pick up and move forward? So resilience is paramount. The Crown model really, it it contains all of the aspects of resilience in it, of being adaptable, learning to reach out for help when needed, learning
Hmm.
to be optimistic despite the obstacles that you're facing, and also just uh, being someone that is knowing that, look, my success is inevitable. Where I am right now is not where I will be forever. It's just, this is the process now. This is, a lesson that is being learned, and I'm going to utilize that to help someone else. So I think anytime you look at things as you're learning a lesson, and you're not necessarily, doesn't make you a terrible person because
Hmm.
you experienced a layoff, or you got demoted or you were turned down for a promotion or whatever the obstacles are, if we learn to look at it as that sometimes the rejection can be God's protection. And
Yeah.
also, a no can always mean not now. It
Not
can also
yet.
mean next opportunity, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
next option. So those are the benchmarks of the Crown framework, is to kind of keep going. There's a continuum.
Yes. Keep going. There are going to be ebbs and flows. You're going to be going through the valleys, and then there are times when you're going to be on the mountain, but you just continue going. So I'm mindful of the time, and let me ask you this question. If someone is feeling unsure or invisible right now, how can they start building a more confident and grounded version of themselves? I answer this question because I work with, a lot of people, well, several people who are somehow they don't feel confident about themselves, their values, their worth. And I would like to hear your perspective on, when they're feeling unsure, or feeling as if they're invisible. No one is seeing. I'm working, working, working so hard, and nobody's seeing me. What advice would you have for somebody like that?
Yes, I do. And I do think actually of different people, actually individuals I've worked with, that it's kind of remarkable because a lot of people I've worked with are in the tech space, we're in the tech space, and they have, very impressive backgrounds, right? They have things that are, whether they're highly educated, Ivy League educated, they may have patents in their name and everything. And you would probably be surprised. A lot of times those people do question the value. And I think it's just because a lot of times when someone is high achieving or they've already done something, they feel that in them doing is kind of a double-edged sword, because when you're already doing the thing, you don't really value it as much as someone
Right.
outside. So a lot
Yes.
of times you're not very good necessarily at self promotion or self marketing, because it's like, okay, you already do it. So it's like you take it for granted, or you have this assumption people just know what you do.
Yes.
That is not reality, unfortunately. And I was that person, to be quite frank with you. I did not know how to self advocate in that way. And I want to say self leadership is self advocacy, it is knowing how to speak up for what it is that you are seeking in terms of advancement. And the other component with the double edged sword is a lot of times when we don't feel it for ourselves, other people are not going to feel it either. That's going
Yes.
to emanate from us that we are not as confident because we don't feel that way about ourselves. So,
Mm-hmm.
so important that we get out of our own way when it comes to that. And one thing that's very helpful for people like myself is to kind of just write down. So keep track of the things that you have done, the contributions you've made in an external sense. If you can, and for me, it's both. It'll be internal and external. But for most people, for them to understand, their impact, understand what it is you've actually contributed to the company. The other thing is when you are doing all these things, like you're doing a lot of work but keeping your head down, you do want to make sure that you're making people aware of what you're actually doing. Because if you're doing all the work, you're only going to get rewarded with more work. That is what I've seen
Exactly.
with my own eyes. That's what's happened to me. Other people I know, that was all that happened because there was never any vocalizing to people who are in positions that would have translated into something. So you want to also be proactive of asking, are there, projects that maybe would help align your strengths that maybe aren't being utilized, right? So that you
Mm-hmm.
can get in a position where it's like, oh, okay, well, this person took initiative. Because one time I was trying to transition into tech from higher ed, and just real quickly, the person I spoke to had a leadership role at Meta, and she said she really appreciated that I came into the meeting already prepared with questions and already
Yes.
having some framework of what I want to achieve and what I want to discuss, and already like taking notes without her having to really say, oh, well, what is, like, to kind of gauge what I want. when you come in proactive and people see that you're willing, people see what you're doing, they're
Mm-hmm.
willing to help you if they see you're willing to help yourself. So you have to be, this is where you have to be a little more verbal and more
Yes.
tactile in getting things actually done. So when you, decide that you want to be in that position to be recognized, it will be so easy for that to already take place as opposed to saying, like myself, I'm a pretty introspective person. So I would just kind of stay to myself and do my work. But the thing is that people really won't know if you're not talking to people, they really won't know the impact that you actually offer. So just keep a track
Exactly.
record. I think some people call it a bragging book. If you can keep like a written record of the things that you actually have done,
Mm-hmm.
that will really help you to do a better job of self advocacy. And that is self leadership, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we are, many of us have been conditioned to believe that, you know what, just work hard. Somebody's going to take notice. Don't say anything, don't speak up. And then we realize that others are probably doing less than we are, and yet they're the ones who are getting the promotion. So I like the idea of, self advocacy, and of course keeping that brag book. I tell my clients to do that all the time. Write things down when you have worked on a project. Write about the part you play, if you led one part of it or if you led the whole part of it, because not only are you building your self confidence, but you're also taking notes so that when you're ready to speak to your boss about your performance over the year, you can say, well, remember when we worked on project X? This is what I did. So I'm glad you emphasized that. And I think it's a great um, it's a great section or topic to end this session on. I really thank you so much for being my guest and talking about, self leadership, self advocacy, and all of that, because we do need that. And in this stage, and so many things are going in the opposite direction. It's always so good to have something that we can hold on to. And I think your crown framework is a great um thing for people to hold on to, or to put on their heads for that matter, put the
Yes.
crown on. So thank you so much, Charity. Before I really sign off, is there anything else that I missed, or anything else you'd like to tell our audience, or how they can get in touch with you and so on?
Thank you so much for having me. And I'll just let people know they're able to follow me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on there, and I make posts. Sometimes I do put together live events, kind of like this. And I appreciate you having me. And yeah, I'm looking to do definitely more speaking events. So if there are any speaker organizers that are looking for someone to speak on leadership development, self development, or just team leadership, definitely reach out to me. And I'm grateful for the time today. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
everyone for listening or watching. And if you missed the live session, it will be it will be on LinkedIn for a while, so you can always watch, listen, comment, and let Charity knows some of the tips that you picked up from our conversation. So thanks again for listening, and thank you so much, Charity.
Thank you. Take care.